By the time police arrived at Kayla Hodgson's apartment, the story looked like a random murder. A 23-year-old woman had been attacked inside her own home, and nobody close to her could understand why anyone would want her dead. But investigators soon discovered that Kayla had been dealing with another woman for months, a woman connected to the man Kayla was dating. And when detectives started pulling on that thread, they uncovered a trail that stretched from New York all the way to Florida. This is the story of Kayla Hodgson, Sakiyna Thompson, and a relationship that ended with a young woman losing her life inside her own home. Sakiyna Thompson was living in New York, working as a nail technician, and building a strong social media following around beauty, fashion, and her lifestyle. Online, she appeared confident and happy, but her relationship with Thermogene had become complicated. The two had been together, but during one of their breaks, Terry started seeing Kayla Hodgson. Kayla lived in Tamarac, Florida, and worked as a bottle waitress at local events. Friends described her as outgoing, friendly, and easy to connect with. But now there was a problem. Sakiyna knew about Kayla. According to people close to Kayla, Sakiyna became increasingly focused on the woman she believed was involved with Terry. Kayla began receiving calls from a woman who would sometimes remain silent before telling her to leave Terry alone. She also received messages, and investigators later learned that Sakiyna had allegedly found ways to monitor Terry's movements. Like, make it make sense. Kayla eventually blocked Sakiyna on social media. That should have ended the contact. It didn't. One of the clearest signs came during an incident in New York. Kayla was going out with a friend when Sakiyna reportedly showed up at a lounge where Kayla was expected to be. According to Kayla's friend, Terry repeatedly called and warned Kayla not to go inside. Sakiyna was there, apparently waiting for her. The confrontation never became a physical fight, and Sakiyna eventually left. But the encounter mattered. She was no longer simply watching Kayla from a distance. She was willing to go where Kayla was. Kayla's friends were noticing too. Then, in July 2022, Sakiyna made a decision that changed everything. She left New York and traveled to South Florida. Investigators would later place her in the area of Kayla's apartment around the time of the murder. Security footage showed a woman wearing a hat, mask, gloves, and clothing that concealed much of her appearance. During the early morning hours, a neighbor reported seeing a masked woman knocking on doors and claiming someone had stolen her bag. At the time, the neighbor had no reason to think the encounter was connected to Kayla. She had no idea the woman outside her door would later become central to a murder investigation. But investigators eventually connected that woman to Sakiyna Thompson. Shortly after 5 in the morning, the person investigators believed was Sakiyna reached Kayla's apartment. Kayla was inside. Her dog was inside. And whatever happened next would leave Kayla dead. Kayla was attacked inside her apartment and suffered 37 stab wounds. Whoever entered her home had managed to get close enough to kill her, and then disappeared.
Elisa, thanks. And now to a tragedy in Tamarac after a woman is found dead. 7's Samantha Sosa is there live with more on the investigation and what we know about the victim. Samantha.
Tavares, good afternoon. The Broward County Sheriff's Office's mobile command center is still here on the scene as investigators continue processing evidence here. And now the Sheriff's Office is officially calling this a murder investigation. Detectives continue going in and out of a second-floor unit Thursday afternoon at the Tamarac Village Apartments along Commercial Boulevard. Investigators processing bags of evidence, including some found outside on the sidewalk. This command center here more than 20 hours after a deadly discovery.
Our caller says that there's a gash on the patient's neck. It looks like someone slashed her neck.
This harrowing 911 call went through around 3 in the afternoon Thursday. Broward deputies later finding a young woman dead. Family says she was just 23 years old. Friends identify her as Kayla Hodgson, pictured here, a flight attendant and bartender for special events. Crime scene tape surrounded the area. 7 Skyforce hovered above the investigation, where detectives say the victim died under suspicious circumstances. A man also seen being transported by ambulance. Family and friends of the woman who died quickly showing up, some embracing while others anxiously waited for answers. Deputies focusing part of their investigation on this white Range Rover parked nearby. Neighbors coming home to see the massive crime scene worried for their own safety.
You don't know if it's someone that lives here, or if it's someone that the person knew that lives outside, but yeah, it's definitely concerning.
Again, this all started yesterday around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Who is responsible for this? Well, that is still a mystery, but if you have any information that could help authorities, you are urged to call the Broward Sheriff's Office, or you can call Crime Stoppers. For now, we are live in Tamarac. Samantha Sosa, 7 News.
On August 3rd, 2022, NYPD officers arrested Sakiyna Thompson in Queens with help from U.S. Marshals. She was later extradited to Broward County and charged with first-degree murder. Sakiyna invoked her rights and had an attorney, so investigators had to build the case around the evidence. Years later, she took the stand. Sakiyna admitted going to Kayla's apartment and admitted killing her, but she said she never intended to murder her. She claimed Kayla attacked first and that she acted in self-defense. Sakiyna also testified that she was 2 months pregnant at the time. Her account was that Kayla punched her and cut her stomach with a piece of glass from a hookah. She said she grabbed the glass and then blacked out. The prosecution argued that the evidence told a very different story. Sakiyna had traveled from New York, arranged transportation, reached Kayla's apartment early in the morning while disguised, changed clothes afterward, and left without calling police. She then returned to New York. Prosecutors argued that those actions showed planning, not panic. The defense maintained that Kayla had allowed Sakiyna inside and that the killing happened during a physical struggle. So the jury faced one central question. Was this a planned murder, or was Sakiyna telling the truth about self-defense? The prosecution presented the travel records, cell phone data, surveillance footage, digital evidence, and DNA. The defense presented Sakiyna's account of the confrontation. Then, the jury had to decide which version made sense. After closing arguments, the jurors began deliberating. Roughly an hour later, they returned with their decision. Sakiyna Thompson was found guilty of first-degree murder in Kayla Hodgson's death. For Kayla's family, the verdict finally answered the question that had followed them since the day she was killed. But there was still one final step. Sakiyna had not yet been sentenced. And before the judge decided her punishment, Kayla's family would finally get their chance to speak. Before Sakiyna Thompson learned her sentence, Kayla's relatives stood in court and spoke about the woman they had lost. They did not see Kayla as a name in a murder case. They saw a daughter, a sister, a cousin, and a friend whose life should have continued. For them, the verdict mattered, but it could never undo what happened inside Kayla's apartment. Prosecutors returned to the evidence, arguing that Sakiyna's trip to Florida was not accidental. She traveled from New York, arranged transportation, went to Kayla's apartment early in the morning, and was connected to the crime through surveillance, cell phone data, and DNA. The defense had asked the jury to believe that Sakiyna lost control during a fight. But prosecutors pointed to everything that happened before and after the killing. She could have stayed in New York. She could have turned around after arriving in Florida. Instead, Kayla was dead, and Sakiyna returned to New York. The jury had already rejected the self-defense argument. Now the judge had to decide the punishment. On December 1st, 2025, Sakiyna Thompson was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The judge pointed to the fact that Thompson had tracked Kayla down, gone to her home, and killed her. Nothing about that sentence could restore Kayla to her family. There was another life permanently changed by the case as well. Sakiyna was pregnant when Kayla was killed, and later gave birth while incarcerated. The relationship that connected the two women had now left behind a dead 23-year-old, a child, and a life sentence. For Kayla's family, the loss was much bigger than the courtroom could measure. It is easy to reduce this case to a story about two women and one man. But the warning signs came long before the murder. There were unwanted messages, alleged prank calls, social media monitoring, an encounter in New York, and finally, a trip to Florida. Then, a woman walked into Kayla's home, and Kayla never walked back out. A relationship ending does not give anyone the right to control another person's life. Rejection does not justify harassment, and jealousy does not excuse violence. Kayla was 23 years old. She had family, friends, work, and a future that was still unfolding. That future ended inside her own home. The conviction brought accountability, but it could never bring Kayla back. For the people who loved her, that is the part that will never change. If you want more true crime stories told with the facts, the evidence, and the people at the center of them in mind, subscribe to Fable of Crime. We cover cases where relationships, jealousy, control, and violence take a devastating turn, while keeping the focus on the lives that were lost and the people left behind. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next case. And if this story stayed with you, let me know what you think in the comments. Sometimes, the warning signs are there long before the tragedy. We just have to be willing to see them.